G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today, well, we're going to be doing one of the most exciting videos I have ever done, because today we're going to be doing how to get into drone racing for under 300 bucks, because I know I get a ton of emails all the time, and people saying, Stuart, I don't have too much money, but this looks like a fantastic fun hobby, and let me tell you, it is. But how do I get into the hobby, I guess, as cheaply as I can? So what I've done, I've gone out and I've picked some products that I think are really going to help people get into the hobby. So for under 300 bucks, this is exactly what you can get. And look, there is a ton more money you can spend, and there's definitely some extras you can buy and upgrades that I recommend that I'll talk about at the end of the video, because some of these you can quite happily spend $1,000 on some of these things and getting the kit all sorted. But on the other hand, there's also some really cheap stuff out there which is absolute junk. So what this video is, I'm going to be showing some really choice kits, so you know that this is pretty much the cheapest that you can get into the hobby and still have good gear. So for that $300, what we're going to be getting an actual decent racing quad, one that's not going to break and one you're still going to be able to thrash around and get some really good speeds with. We're going to have a really cool set of FPV goggles over there on the end. You're going to need to get yourself a radio with the receiver, a battery charger, and a battery. Now obviously, depending on what time people watch this videos, prices might go up or down. I think at the moment when I was looking at this, it's about $290, but you might be able to get it a little bit cheaper, or it might be a little bit over. The point is, this is going to be a really good kit that you can get for about 300 bucks, because if you trust me, if you go any cheaper, you're going to be buying some inferior product and you're not going to have a very good time. And that's what this channel's all about. It's about getting people into drone racing and enjoying FPV. So I promise you, I'm guaranteeing, if you get these components, you're going to be able to go out and have some times like this. It's going to be an absolute blast. It is so much fun, and you guys are going to love it. So anyway, enough rambling from me. What we're going to do, we're going to jump in, have a look at all the components, and I'll also show you how to set it up so it's going to be ready to pretty much how you can put it all together, get all of the different parts working, and you can take this quad to the races, to the fields, and have an awesome time. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's get started. And if you're wondering, all the links for these things that we are using in this video and the pieces that I've chosen for this kit are going to be down in the little description below. Anyway, let's get started. Alrighty, so let's have a bit of an overview of exactly what we're going to get for our money and what we're going to need to get FPV racing for under 300 bucks. So of course you're going to need a quad, and we're going to talk about all these in a little bit more detail, and I will show you how to set it up so it's all working together. But you're going to need your quad, so in this case we're going to be using the eSheen Wizard. You're going to need a set of FPV goggles, so we're going to be using the Kylan Vision goggles. You're going to need a radio receiver combo, so we're going to be using the Frsky with the IO6B receiver. You're going to need a battery charger, so you can charge your LiPo battery, and we're also going to be rocking a 4S 1300 milliamp hour LiPo. So this thing is going to make it go very, very fast. So you guys are going to love it. But what we're going to do first, let's jump in, and I'll explain the choices of the quad right here. So we'll talk about the most exciting part, and we'll have a bit of a look at the Wizard. And something really, really cool about this setup is because it's using some special VTXs, and these are proper racing quads and a proper FPV headset. If you get a bunch of mates together, you can get like multiples of these things flying around. You can actually have like a race. So if you wanted like 5 or 6 of you guys all racing around together, this kit would be more than capable of getting that happening. Anyway, let's start off with the quad right here. So let's have a bit of a closer look at the Wizard, and I'll explain what makes this so good for this under $300 little kit right here. Alrighty, so let's have a look at this quad, and the quad we've chosen for this video, look, it couldn't really be any other than the Wizard, because I've reviewed a ton of FPV quads in the past. You would have seen that wall at the start of the video, and I gave this thing my Drone of the Year award. It is absolutely unbeatable value. It's pretty much the real building, the cornerstone of this complete whole kit. So pretty much for 130 bucks, that's all this one was when I was looking around. For 130 bucks, you get some really, really fantastic components, and I'm going to rattle them off so you get some pretty decent motors, some fantastic BL-Heli SESCs. It's all carbon fiber, so it's going to take a beating. You get a heap of spare props. You've got heaps of VTX channels. That's the part that actually talks to your video headset. It's super easy to set up. It comes pre-built, so you don't have to do any soldering. So this thing, oh, and it's got some cool little LEDs if you want to fly around and chase it around and things like that. So this thing here, yeah, this was my winner of the Drone of the Year Award 2016, because the value of this thing is off the chain, and it is so easy to set up and get flying. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, Stuart, look, I saw this one cheaper, or what about this one? And look, let me just tell you, this is the best you can get for $130, because if it's any cheaper, trust me, it's going to be garbage. And I've even seen a lot more expensive quads than this that aren't anywhere near this good. So that's why we've chosen the Eachine Wizard for the quad that we're going to actually be doing some FPV racing with. Alrighty, so now let's have a bit of a look at the headset. And you couldn't do any FPV racing without an FPV headset. And essentially what this is going to do, we're going to send the signal that comes from the front of this racing quad. So as you're hooning around the course or flying around the trees, you're going to be getting that image sent straight to your headset so you can see exactly where you're going in like a first person view. Now headsets vary wildly in price. Some are as little as $50. Some are up to like $500 US for the latest like HD3s and things like that. But look, I've reviewed quite a few headsets in the past as well, and I'm going to leave a little link to the Kylan review if you want to watch this one in more detail up here. But essentially for 90 bucks, you get a really solid headset that's got some great features like it can auto scan, you can manually set your channels, and it's got a really nice comfortable foam piece on the top that you can watch in. It's got a nice large screen that's really bright and vibrant, and pretty much just an all-round solid good value goggle, keeping with the rest of our kit. And it's also going to help keep the price down, because this is something, the FPV goggles, if you want to go for the smaller style, the glasses sort of style, they can get very expensive. So the Kylan are a great choice, and I really can't recommend them enough. Alrighty, now just when you had your heart set on this, I do want to put these ones in here and drop these. Now these are the EV800 Eachine goggles, pretty much the same deal. In my opinion, I think the Kylan's better, but these ones are about $10 cheaper. So look, really, if you can save up $10, I definitely recommend getting the Kylan Vision goggles. I think they're going to be a better goggle for you. But if you're totally strapped for cash and you still want, I guess, a semi-decent product, I guess you could sort of settle on this. But definitely do not go any cheaper than these two, because these two are pretty much good, solid value picks. And yeah, I'm going to put my money on the Kylan. So that one's about another $90. So far we've got a $130 racing quad and a $90 pair of goggles. So that's $220 that we've got spent so far. So let's find out what we're going to spend our remaining 80 bucks on. And here's one part of it, and I think this one is about $45. I think when I looked online, you're going to need to get a radio and receiver combo. Look, you could get them separately if you want to shop around and see if you can get a fantastic price, but you need to get these two that work together. So this is the Frsky FS i6 radio, and also its compatible receiver. Now what this is going to let you do, this is going to let you steer and fly the quad, and this little receiver is the part that's going to actually plug into our quad and send all the commands. So the quad's going to do what you want it to do. You're going to be able to tell it what to do. Now really important here, this part I can't stress enough, make sure you get there, and look, there'll be a link in the description, so it shouldn't be too confusing. But if you're going to put a receiver in the Wizard, which is our little racing quad, make sure you're using the FSIA6B, because that's going to make it so much easier to set up. It literally, all you have to do is plug it in with one simple cable and it's going to be ready to go. So very simple. Now look, this is a very basic radio, and radios can range from anywhere from like $30 to $40 all the way up to like $1,000. So pretty much this is a very budget entry radio, but it's going to be great for those people who are just wanting to get into the hobby and to also keep it under that $300 mark. So look, I still know people who do fly with this. I personally use a Taranis myself, which is about a $200 US radio, but look, I've seen some people doing races with this, and eventually they do upgrade. But if you're just getting into the hobby, a ton of people use these, and there is a lot of support for them as well. And especially now that it's got these new receivers, it does making setting up very easy. It is worth noting though that on the back it is powered by some double A batteries, so that might be something that a lot of newer radios don't have. So make sure you bring some spare batteries to the field. Alrighty, and speaking of batteries, here it is. So this is the Eachine 1300 milliamp hour 4S battery, and what 4S means is it is going to absolutely pump the power through your little racing quad right here. It is going to be getting some serious speed. You guys are going to love it, and this is pretty much where all your juice comes from. Now if you're the flight time on a mini quad racing, you're going to be getting anywhere from between 3 minutes if you are absolutely gunning it flat chat all the time, probably up to about 7 minutes if you're just sort of hovering around. So it's really dependent on just how hard you are pushing your quad. But this is somewhere where I really can recommend people to drop extra money. So if you want to drop a little bit more, definitely get multiples of batteries, so you can just take a whole bunch of these things out out, and just stick one in after another and keep flying all day long, because that's pretty much how they're made. Stick them in, fly it around, put the next one in, fly that one around. So a ton of fun. And pretty much what 4S means, that means we're going to be putting a heap of volts through our quad. It's going to have some very, very fast speeds. And the beauty is, of course, these things are rechargeable. So all you have to simply do is plug them into your charger, which brings us on to our next point. Let's move on and look at our charger. Alrighty, and this is our charger right here. Now this is a Charson. This is a 4S LiPo battery charger. The reason I've chose this is because it is super easy, but also super cheap. You can, again, in this hobby, lots of things range in price, so from very cheap to very expensive. And this is pretty much about the cheapest 4S balance charger that you can get, but it's still going to do its job. So, it's very easy to set up too. All you have to simply do is plug one end into the wall, put the other end in here, and it will charge your battery. So very, very easy. Alright, so with all that said and done, let's put it all together. We've had a look at all our parts, but I'm going to show you now very simply how easy this stuff goes together, how easy it is to set up and get flying. So all you have to do is then take this down to the field and have an absolute blast. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start just taking the top off our quad and putting our receiver in there, and I'll show you how to wire all that up. It's very, very easy, no soldering, anything like that. Simply plug it together, push one or two buttons, and you are good to go. Alright, so the first little thing we're going to do, we're going to just take out the 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to take off that carbon plate because that's going to allow us to put our receiver inside. So that's going to allow us to hook this up. It's super easy, and then we can just pretty much put it back together, and I'll show you how to set up on the radio. So let's take the top plate off this and we'll have a look at it. Alright, so I've taken the little top carbon plate off right here, and you'll see pretty much the only loose wire you're going to have in here is this one right here. That is it. This is all we're going to have to plug in. And a really, really important safety thing here, always take your props off or your propellers off when you're working on your quad, because these things can be quite dangerous. If you flick the wrong switch or something like that when you're working on them, you don't want any nasty cuts. So take your propellers off just to be safe, because I don't want to see anybody hurting themselves. Anyway, back to the little the quad here. We don't have to do any soldering. All we have to do is plug it in. So we're going to take our little receiver. So when I find my little receiver, 1 second, here it is. We're going to take our FSIA6. We're going to take our little FSIA6B receiver right here, and you'll notice right here we've got a couple of little things. We've got a PPM on channel 1, channel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then also a binding pin all the way at the top. Now all we simply have to do, the white cable that comes out of the Wizard, that goes in the one that's closest to the top, to the riding right here, and we can simply slide it in just like that. So all it is, you can see right here we've got white, voltage and ground, and they're going white, voltage, ground, plug straight into here. So very, very simple. And I'll also put a little picture up as well, so if anyone's stuck you can just look at that. But that's how that one's going. Hopefully you can see that. I might zoom in a little bit. There we go. I've zoomed in so you can see down here it says PPM, and we've simply plugged it in as white, voltage, and then the black cable, it is at the bottom right there. So a little bit tricky to see with black on black. Hang on, let me just get it. So that's how it goes. So you've got white, red, black. Very easy to plug in. So that is it almost for our receiver. Very, very simple to plug in, but there's one little last thing we need to do so we can make it so it's going to talk to our radio that we bought, and that is you're going to get one of these leads. Now this is called a jumper lead, and you only use this pretty much when you're first setting up your radio, and it's going to mean that you can lock your receiver so it talks to only your radio. So that's how that works, and they need to sort of do that little, it's called a binding process. And all you need to do, the last set on the complete opposite side to where this is, we're just going to plug those pins in right there. So it's going to be on the other side. So hopefully, I know it might be a little bit tricky to see that, but your pins right here, that's where that little jumper cable is going to be. So on the other side. Believe it or not, that's actually it for setting up the receiver. So now what we can do, we can actually bind it up to our radio. Alright, so we've got our receiver ready to go in binding mode. We've got our Frsky receiver right here. Now what we're going to need to do before we plug this in, because we're going to have to put our battery in just here, make sure your antenna is on, because you never want to power your quad without your little FPV antenna attached. That's this part right here that should come in the kit, because if you do, you can fry your VTX and sort of burn it out. So make sure your antenna's on before we continue. Alright, so we're going to take our LiPo battery right here, take our LiPo, plug it in. Your quad might make some beeps, which is fine. and then you can see this little red light is flashing right here. So that's because we've got our bind pin in, and what that is doing, that's waiting for our radio to talk to our receiver. So now on our radio, we're going to hold this little button right here. So there's a little button right here. We're going to hold that in, turn our quad on. You can see it said binding successful, and our red light is now successfully on. So these two are now talking to each other. Now there's a little step we need to do in here just to make sure that it's all working properly. Alright, so there's only two little things in here, very, very easily. We just need to go into the menu. We're going to hold OK. I think it should go to some settings. There we go. Press enter on the, press OK again on the systems. We're going to use the down buttons, and we're going to go to RX setup. That stands for the receiver we just put in. We're going to do PPM output and make sure that is on. So that's the first setting you need to take care of. And then we're going to go down and we're going to go to failsafe. Now in the failsafe, everything is going to look like it's off, but there's two important things we need to do. So on channel 3 for this particular receiver and model, hang on, we're going to turn this one on, and you can see that means we want our throttle to be at 0%. And let's go down to channel 5 as well, because that's the one we made as our arming switch. Oh no, we're going to, on channel 5, make sure that's all the way up there, turn that one on as well, there we go, and hold cancel to exit. So that's pretty good, and that's going to ensure we have no flyaways if we ever lose signal or connection with our quad when we're out in the field. Now if we exit from here, there's another little thing in setup that we're going to go across to, go into here, and this is where we can set our auxiliary channels, and depending on what sort of button we've got in here, so we can simply go up and down. So say we want to change this one, I think it's, there we go, you can go through them all like that, and that's going to change. You can pick which switch it's going to be. So we're going to set it up on this one, channel 5 for D, I think, is that D? Yep, SWD, and I'm also going to set channel 6 for A, so that we're going to use those two switches later on when we open up the computer. So now we've got our radio, it's bound to our quad. What we need to do, we're going to just unplug the little binding thing because that's locked now, so we don't need that anymore. Take that out, put that in a safe place in case you ever need to use this again, so put that to the side, and we're ready to move on to setting up our VTX channel. So this is also very, very easy. The radio's beeping at me telling me to turn it off, but this is also very, very easy to simply set this up and make sure that that's talking to our FPV goggles. Alrighty, so now I've zoomed in, hopefully you can see this little part here. This is our VTX, or our video transmitter, and I've taken the antenna off just so we can get this shot, but if you ever plug your battery in, make sure you've always got your antenna attached. But essentially you've got some little dip switches here. They might be protected by this little bit of plastic, but simply peel that away because that's going to be no harm at all. And you notice you've got some little dip switches, and these you need to slide up and down, and that's going to help you select your channel. Now all I'm going to do, I'm going to go through and show you the process. So I'm going to call on at the top, and off is down the bottom near the numbers, and this is how to put it on channel 5820, which is what I fly on, but any of these would work. So pretty much, and the beauty of with the goggles, you can just auto scan, so if you can't get this to work, your goggles will be able to find whatever channel you're putting this out on anyway. But for 5820, alrighty, I've just put this little freeze frame in here because I got this mucked around the wrong way, but 5820 is a really easy frequency to get, and pretty much dip switches 1 and 2 are on, and all the rest are in the off position. Alright, so my quad's set, I've put it all back together. I've just left the little side plates off here so you can see exactly how I've put my receiver in here. You might want to zip tie that down a little bit. I've just mounted it with a little bit of double-sided tape right there, but maybe if you want to zip tie it down, but it's probably not going to go anywhere when you got your foam parts on the outside anyway. And then I've just run my antennas out the top just here and attached them to some little zip ties with a little bit of tape. Alrighty, so let's have a look now at the FPV side of things. So we're going to talk about our goggles, and then we're going to make sure that we can get our video feed looking at our goggles. Alright, now the goggles we mentioned before that we're going to be using are the Kylan goggles. I like them because of their auto scan functions, and you can tell exactly what channel they're on. So all you need to do is attach your antenna, which is pretty straightforward once your goggle is fully charged up. Then I think you press and hold the power buttons, and I'll leave a little link to these just up here as well if you want to check these out. So press and hold the power button. That's going to turn on and access our menu, so that's how we're going to be doing this. Alright, so now with your goggles on, let's make sure our quad antenna is on, and let's plug in our quad right here. So put our LiPo in here. Might make some little beeps. We'll put that to the side. All you simply do is you press menu. Hopefully we can do this menu a full few times until you get to this one. This is the channel search. Press up on that, and you can see it's scanning through all our channels. Boom, there it is. It is locked to our FPV channel right there, and you can manually go up and down and select your channels if you want to, one by one. But right now, here's the quads. So we are ready to rock and roll. That's how easy it is to hook up your FPV goggles. So all you have to do is simply slide these over your head, and you're going to be seeing exactly what the quad sees as it's flying around. Now, before we go any further, I do want to talk about how to recharge your battery. So with this little charger, it is dead easy. So plug one end into the wall, plug the other end right here. That's going to boot up, and all you have to do is plug this in like this. So you just take your balance lead, that is this little cable right here, plug it in, and if this thing is plugged into the wall, it's not going to tell you what it is, it's actually going to start charging. So super easy, and it's going to make sure it's balance charged. A little water warning, don't fly these too long till they fall out of the sky. You do want to come in a little bit. So pretty much the best advice is, if you do take this thing down to the field as well, because this is going to let you check your batteries in the field. So when you're out flying, plug it in. And you pretty much want to be landing so your battery is coming in at about 3.6 volts when you're finished flying, and it should charge up to 4.2. So that's how you can tell. Take this thing with you, because that'll be able to tell you, are you taking healthy care of your battery? So super easy. That's why I like this charge for this. Not only is it cheap and it can charge our 4S battery, but it can also check our battery voltage. Alrighty, so we are almost there. We're almost ready. This thing, if we did plug it in, we definitely could spin the motors up and stuff. But what I want to do, we're going to be plugging it into the computer and spending about 2 minutes on the computer, because I'm going to show you how to set up and use the software on this to make sure that you can get this thing to either do full acro, so you can have it totally manual control. You can get it to self level if you'd like it to do that, with a very easy program called Betaflight. So we're going to jump over to the computer. We're going to show you how to plug it in, and pretty much just how easy it is to set up and get flying. And then we're going to jump down to the field and give this thing a spin, give it a real race. Alright, now to connect it to the computer, very easy. You just take a USB cable to micro USB, so you plug one end in there, one end in the side of your quad in the little flight controller that's inside. Boom, that's it. And now we're going to jump over and we're going to do some recording on my computer. And I do apologize, because I don't have the best computer, so I'm not going to be able to screen capture, but I will be able to film it, and you'll get the gist of it anyway. Pretty much the bare essentials to what we need. Save time, get out and get flying. Alrighty, so I've just opened up, it's a little Google app, and I'll leave a little link to this down in the description. Sorry, a little Chrome app. I'll leave a little link to this down in the description below. My quad is plugged in. I'm going to click on Betaflight right there. That's going to open this up. So this is Betaflight and the program we use. We're going to click connect up in the top right hand corner. It's going to connect, and this is our quad right here. If I move my quad around, that's going to correspond to the movements on the screen. So we're going to go through, it should pretty much be set up ready to fly, because that's how we got it, I guess, bind and fly. All we have to do is put in our receiver. So the first thing, we're going to scroll down here, and your yaw degrees right here, this needs to be set to 270, or it could be -90. Either one, it doesn't make a difference, just make sure it's on that. What we need to do here, we're going to have ours on ppm, so we're going to be using some ppm, and yours might come like this, but these are just some settings to double check and make sure, because they will make a difference when you're trying to fly around. It won't work without it. So we'll click save and reboot there. So that should do a few little beeps and things like that. We're going to jump over to PID tuning. Right here, this is how you can choose if you want it more responsive or less responsive on the stick. So I'm going to boost mine to, let's put it about there for me, but I've been flying for a little bit while, so I think the defaults will be fine for you guys. So I'm going to click save there. We're going to jump over to our receiver tab, and this is where you can check. This part is important to make sure that it's working for whatever radio receiver you put in, but we're going to have our channel mapping right here, and that's just on the defaults. But if yours isn't working, that might be a little something you need to check. So now I'm going to plug in my quad, and we should be able to turn our radio on, and we'll see our little sticks move. So I'm plugging in the quad now. I'm going to turn my radio on. Alright, so now you can see when I move the sticks, so there's my throttle, there's my yaw, my pitch forward and backwards, and my pitch left and right. So that is all ready to go. And also we've got some little auxiliary switches right here as well, and they're going to be very, very important. Now if we jump over to modes right here, we can see it is totally blank at the moment, and this is where pretty much the magic happens. So what we want to do, we need to make it so the switches that we flick on this radio actually do something to our quadcopter. So your quad is not going to fly unless it's armed. So let's turn this on. We're going to make it so when this switch is all the way up to this space right here, you can see that little tab moving underneath. It's going to arm the quad, and you can make this as big or as small as you like, but I make sure that when you flick it off, nothing's going to be happening. So if that switch is off, the quad is going to be dead. If I turn it on, it's going to arm the quads and the motors will spin up a little bit. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to move down, and this part here, angle mode, that means the quad will self-level. So if you let go of the sticks, it will back itself out and make itself flat. So we'll make that, which one was that stick? Maybe, and we better put that on auxiliary 2. There we go. So now if I flick this switch on this side, that means it's going to be in self-level mode, and flick it away, that's going to be full acro mode or nothing. So that might be a good little training switch. So if you're having trouble flying, you can flick that. Might make your flying a little bit easier, and flick it off. You're going to have full control. Now we can go down and hit save, and we are ready to take this thing down to the courses and have a bit of fun. Alright, so now we've set it up on the computer. Check this out. We can plug it in a lot. I bet you it's a lot easier than you thought it was going to be. Going to make some noises. We're going to turn on our radio right here. Flick the switch, and we are armed and ready to go. Alright, and now a good little test with it plugged in. All you want to do is arm your quad, rev it up a little bit with your throttle, turn your receiver off, and the motor should stop. So that means if you ever lose signal, your $300 present isn't just going to fly away, it'll just crash into the ground. And we crash these things all the time, so that's what you want it to do. You want the motors to stop. Alright, so let's put some props on this bad boy, and we are ready to rock and roll. So you notice you get two bags, some are with R, some with a big R on it, and some of the standard ones. So the reverse ones, they go on motors 1 and 4, and the normal props, so the ones over this side, got to turn my radio off, go on this one over here, so motors 2 and 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the way they go. These two are R, these two are standard. Simply screw them down, and we are ready to rock and roll. So that should be very, very cool. You guys are gonna love it. So there it is. There's my guide on how to get into FPV drone racing for under 300 bucks. Now we did mention some little upgrades before, I guess bigger upgrades if you get more into this hobby. Something that I know a lot of pilots fly with, they do check out, definitely check out the Fatshark goggles, but they can be upwards to about $500 US. So definitely they're sort of the more pinnacle thing, which is why we've chosen some of the better valued components over here. And a radio that a lot of people use, like we use the Frsky, the FSI6, the blue one over here, but pretty much the gold standard in the hobby is also the Frsky taranis. So definitely check that out if you're after some upgrades. And in terms of upgrading your quad, well, I've got, I have, like, not hundreds, but I have an awful lot of quads up here that most of these, 90% of these things, I do have reviews on my channel. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out there, because I know it can be a little bit scary and daunting when you do want to get into FPV racing, and it looks so much fun. And there's a ton of junk out there too, so I don't want people wasting their money. All these components that we went through in today's kit, they're going to make it so you can have a fantastic time when you're out flying. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out there. Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Now if you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that like button and remember to subscribe, because by hitting that like button, that pretty much pushes this video out to more people and really helps promote the video, and I guess hopefully get more people into the hobby, buying the kit that they deserve rather than wasting their money and getting an inferior product or paying way too much for something when you don't need to, when you're just sort of entering. Anyway, this thing is ready to rock and roll. I'm dying to rip some batteries through this, so I'm going to take it down to the field, and more importantly, to show you guys that this really is a, I guess, a valuable and viable racing quad. I've got a couple together, and we're going to put on some FPV races with these wizards using all this kit we've spoken about today. Anyway, so let's cut down there, and you guys are going to love it. Alright, let's go. Alrighty, so we're down here. I'm with my mate Pezzy D, who I do a lot of flying with. We've both got a set of wizards. We've got some Frsky radios and a set of the Kylans. So this is to show you really can have a race with using some of these things. And this is going to be Perry's first go with the Kylans. islands too, so it'll sort of be interesting to see what he thinks about him, because he's used to using those expensive Fatsharks. So it'll be cool to get his impressions as well. So I think you guys are going to love it. All right, let's go. All right, the race is on. And up and race.